All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to get started because I want to allow our Welch Memorial Lecturer to have as much time as he possibly can. Thank you for coming. It's wonderful to see all these people here this afternoon for our Welch Memorial Lecture session. As usual, we want to recognize the sponsorship that we received this year. It was unprecedented, and at this time I would like to invite Louis Vieira from Braco to say a few words on behalf of his company.
Good afternoon, everyone. Medical imaging technologists, medical radiation technologists, Executive Committee of the ISRT and CAMRT, industry colleagues, organizing committee, ladies and gentlemen. As one of the world's leading companies in diagnostic imaging, Braco operates in more than 90 countries worldwide. Braco, with manufacturing facilities and offices in Italy, Germany, Switzerland, USA, and Canada, Braco is the global player, providing a large portfolio of imaging agents and automated contrast delivery systems, as well as other medical devices that enhance anatomic and functional visualization of internal organs. Braco Imaging is proud to support the radiology community and professional associations in their effort to provide members outstanding continuing medical education. We hope you're having a wonderful meeting and are enjoying your stay in Toronto. Thank you.
And at this time, I'd like to invite our illustrious president, Amanda Boulderston, to the stage.
Good afternoon. Thanks, Nicole. It's an honor for me to welcome this year's Welch Memorial Lecturer. The Welch Memorial Lecture is delivered at the conference each year to honor Herbert M. Welch, who showed considerable commitment and devotion in the establishment of the Canadian Society of Radiological Technicians. The privilege of presenting the Welch Lecture is extended to a person who demonstrates strong commitment to the profession and who's made an exceptional contribution to the growth and aims of our organization, or has been responsible for achievements and advancements in the technical or education fields. At this point, it's my pleasure to invite Dr. Rob Davidson from the School of Dentistry and Health Sciences at Charles Sturt University in Australia to introduce his good friend and colleague, Euclid Seeram, who is our 2012 Welch Memorial Lecturer.
I'm a little bit like Michael Ward. I need the use of these. First of all, it's been an honour and a privilege to know Euclid, and it's even more of an honour to be able to introduce Euclid Seeram, RTR, BSc, MSc, FCAMRT, and the list goes on, to present the Welch Memorial Lecture. Amanda's just given a really good rundown of why he is doing it in terms of what the privilege is and what the Welch Memorial Lecture is about, so I won't repeat those sorts of aspects. But Euclid is a full-time faculty member at the British Columbia Institute of Technology and teaches medical radiation diploma programs as well as into the Bachelor of Technology program in medical imaging. He graduated with the highest honours in medical radiation from the Ottawa General Hospital School of Radiography in 1970, so he even predates me. As he worked as a radiological technologist or a radiographer in both routine and special procedure radiographers, and subsequently then completed his Bachelor of Science at the Carleton University in Ottawa. In 1990, Euclid completed his Masters of Science from Simon Fraser University in BC. In 1992, he obtained a Certificate of Physics of Magnetic Resonant Imaging from the American Association of Physicists in Medicine. He also completed an advanced MR Physics course by the Northwest Imaging Forums and a medical imaging informatics course from Stanford. Euclid's near completion of his PhD and is about to submit his PhD thesis for examination. And I'm really proud to say that I'm one of his PhD supervisors. His current research interests are related to radiation dose in CT and radiation dose optimisation in digital radiography systems. Euclid has published over 36 papers in peer-reviewed journals and has 17 textbooks to date. Topics in the textbooks include CT, computed radiology, radiographic instrumentation, digital radiography and radiation protection. I don't think there'd be too many of us out there that who've done a course in radiography somewhere that haven't benefited by Euclid's ability to explain a complex problem so that we can all understand it from reading his textbooks. He's got that innate ability to be able to make the complex simple. Euclid is an active member of the CAMRT and has served as a member for the editorial board of the Journal of Medical Imaging and Radiological Sciences for several years. He's now listed as a foundation member of this journal. He serves on several journal editorial boards such as Radiography, an international journal in diagnostic imaging and radiation therapy, the Biomedical Imaging and Interventional Journal, a journal based out of Malaysia. Additionally, he's the editor-in-chief for the radiography section of eHealth Professionals, a new online journal, and also serves as a peer reviewer for the Journal of Allied Health. Busy man. Some other recognitions of Euclid's achievements are, in 1995, Euclid was presented with the Lamp of Knowledge Award. This award is presented annually to a CAMRT member who the Board of Directors feels has made a significant contribution to the association in the field of education. In 1997, Euclid was honoured with the W.Q. Sterling Award by the British Columbia Association of Medical Radiation Technologists for his contribution to the art and science of medical radiography. In 2000, Euclid was awarded the Fellowship of the CAMRT at the annual General Conference held here in Toronto in that year. In 2004, Euclid won the prestigious Excellence in Teaching Award at BCIT. And again, I was fortunate to be present when he received that award. Euclid also served as an external member on the CT Master's Degree Program at the University College Dublin in Ireland. In 2007, Euclid was the keynote speaker at our Australian annual scientific meeting of medical imaging and radiation therapy. And currently, Euclid serves as the only Canadian on the General Electric Education Advisory Board. So his list of achievements goes on. Not sure when he's got the spare time, but when he has, Euclid likes to listen to classical guitar music, particularly the music of Leona Boyd, as well as New Celtic music. Euclid's even got some abilities in that area himself, because he played in a band back in Guyana, the Mystic Five. I'd like to see the other four. I think that would be fantastic. The three most important treasures in his life are his wife, Trish, who's sitting here today with us, and his son and daughter-in-law, Priscilla. And importantly, they're about to become proud grandparents. You should just listen to them over dinner and see what they talk about. I'm sure you all agree that Euclid meets and exceeds the requirements and is an excellent choice to present the Welch Memorial Lecture, The Evolution of Medical Imaging Sciences. Euclid, we better follow in Alex's requirements and give you a hug on your way up here. Please welcome Euclid Seeram.
Thank you. Thanks, buddy. Okay, let's see if I can operate this technology. There's one that says forward, one backward. I think I can handle that. And then there's a laser pointer here. Now, unfortunately, you see, I'm red-green colorblind. And this is a red laser, so I really can't see it. Thanks very much. And there is no pointer here, so what I'm going to do in the presentation You can just look at the slide, enjoy the show. And I have 100 slides, I think, 100 slides, imagine. So I used my problem-solving skills and computed that I will take 30 seconds per slide. That gives me 50 minutes. And I'm well within that 1 hour. So hopefully I'll try and do that. Thank you, Rob and Amanda, for the introduction. That makes me sound very, very good. And I hope I could live up to this presentation. So there are some acknowledgments. To get onto this stage, one needs the support of several individuals, as you know, well know, and I thank the CAMRT Board of Directors for their confidence in selecting me to present this lecture. So I'm very pleased to have accepted this honor. When Shirley Bagu phoned me, Shirley is the past president. Shirley, are you here? Yeah. Anyway, she told me on the phone and wanted to phone and always phone the individual of choice or selection, and told me, would I accept this honor? And of course I said, yes, I will. So after we got off the phone, I said to myself, yes, I finally made it. And then, of course, another individual who's always been supportive and has some responsibility of getting me on this stage is Domenico Cialli, who acted as program head for me when I was away for a leave of absence. So I thank all of you. And I just want to show you 3 other people who actually worked behind the scenes to get me here, and that's Myrtle Shields, Ruta, and Phyllis Williams. So, for example, I got the picture of Mr. Welch from Phyllis. She dug in the files and got me previous Welch presenters. And Myrtle did a lot of the hotel accommodations and the transportation here. Ruta, of course, did all the other stuff surrounding getting to this Toronto and to present this lecture. So thank you all. And I am pleased to say that I went back 6 years and looked at the people who actually presented. So I'm very honored to be in such good company. And unfortunately, I couldn't fill this. I guess I had room for about 4 more people. But I went back 6 years. And if you look on the right-hand side, you'll see the topics. And I'll just read them through for you. I hope you can see it on the small screens for those of you at the back. A northern experience. The last piece of the puzzle, working, hiring, and leading in a changing world. How can we prepare for the workplace of the future? And look at this one. Oh, sex, religion, and politics. Well, I only have experience in one of them. And that's actually the religion. I'm a very good Christian boy. I'm very moral, and so on and so forth. And then we have Imaging the Future, our BC, Lindy, and Nicole, who presented Building Our Professional Community. And so when I looked at the advertisements for this Toronto conference, the ISRRT World Congress, it says here, picture yourself here. So what I did was just that. But I think they mean only put your picture where that arrow is. But I got carried away, and what the heck. Anyway, so today I'm going to talk on the evolution of medical imaging sciences. And I must say, I forgot Karen Smith. Everyone knows Karen. Karen and I actually had coffee about this topic, and she said, no, Euclid, you should stick to the sciences because that sort of portrays who you are. And definitely I am interested in the science of imaging, and that's why I've taken all those courses to educate myself further. I do care about the patient as well, and we will see why in a moment. Significant developments that intrigued me during my journey through medical imaging. So these are developments, you all know these details, so I'm not here to teach you anything. However, I don't know if you want a quiz or two at the end, 2 questions, so pay careful attention now and enjoy the slides. So I am grateful to a whole bunch of other people that I've learned from. And the first 4 or 5 physicists on that list, I've learned a lot from those guys through their publications and actually have taken courses from them. And Dr. Maidmont, I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly, I have cited some works that he has talked about on the future of medical imaging, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about that. And of course, Stuart Bouchon, you all know Stuart, and Dave Seeram, that is in boldface. Dave is our son, and a brilliant, handsome, caring young man, as a matter of fact. So I've learned a lot of stuff from Dave, who actually studied applied math at Simon Fraser University and subsequently went into digital image processing, and I've learned a lot from Dave. And those of you who remember the digital image processing primer that was published in our Journal of Medical Radiation Sciences, that paper was co-authored by our son Dave. So thank you, Dave, even though you're not here. Of course, the list goes on. Rob Davidson, you just met, and you've met in the conference proceedings and so on. And then the list goes on. Of course, I thank all the medical imaging equipment people, particularly this list that I have here, since I've used some of their diagrams. And I'm making my acknowledgement up front because as I tried to put the acknowledgement on every slide, it was taking up too much time, and I had to go and teach, so, you know, or had some coffee or something. Now, if you look at this slide, I grabbed this slide from the most recent publication, Essentials of Medical Imaging Physics. And the reason I brought this slide along is to show you that we are all using the electromagnetic radiation spectrum. So it's electromagnetic radiation that we're using. And if you look at the wiggly line down there, you know, the wiggly line, it says frequencies. I want you to note that ionizing radiation, we have very high frequency radiation. We talk about it in terms of wavelength and penetrating ability. And then on the left-hand side, you see that the waves decrease in frequency. So we have low frequencies, we have high frequency radiation that we use. So now, this is the electromagnetic radiation. So I told my friend, well, I use electromagnetic radiation in my work. And he says, what work do you do? So I told him, and he says, well, what does that mean? I said, well, an electromagnetic wave is actually 2 fields, a magnetic field and an electric field propagating through space at right angles to each other. And then he says, well, what can you do with that? But we can do a lot of things here. And we can do a lot of things. You can see on the left-hand side, MRI uses RF, radiofrequency radiation. And on the right-hand side, we see radiography, nuclear medicine. We use ionizing radiation and particulate radiation as well. So with this slide in mind, I want to dedicate this lecture to all the imaging physicists, the biomedical engineers, computer scientists, mathematicians, who have actually done the original work. And why have they done this work? Well, so that the patient could benefit, we could benefit, etc. So thank you, guys. These are the guys with the thick, dark-rimmed glasses and pocket protectors that we hardly see. Or if we do see them, we try to avoid them because of their brilliance. So here's a nice quote to justify this topic. It says, biomedical imaging is a science and an art that requires years of education and training for the expertise and skill of its practitioner to fully develop. It is multidisciplinary, and it depends on knowledge not only of biological systems to which is applied, but also to the physics, chemistry, computer science that underline the technology and its multivariate uses. We have witnessed nothing short of a revolution in science over the past 5 years. Some may see this year as the grand finale. I think of it more as the overture. As the 21st century begins to unfold, we are poised to make quantum leaps in our knowledge about how to improve people's health. And this is from Elias of the National Institutes of Health. So with that quote in mind, I think it supports the choice of this topic. Now, where does Euclid work and live? So if you look in the rectangular box there, that is BCIT. On the Burnaby campus, we have several campuses elsewhere in Vancouver and Surrey. And where do I live? Well, look carefully. Where's my arrow? Oh, here we go. Home sweet home. That is where I live, and that whole belt there is called Green Tree Village. So then I cut across where that yellow line is, I cross the street, and I walk along to my office over there. So even though I'm brown, I really try hard to be green. Everything is green now, so I'm really trying to be green. And look at that, 17,000 day school, that's the last data I had, and part-time studies, 37,000. So here is courtesy of Siemens Medical Systems. Here's the patient. This is a happy patient. Look at the pleasant smile on this patient. And what we see around the patient is well, of course, there's a technologist that operates that machine, or the machinery. So the equipment surrounds the patient. The patient is actually central to the imaging process, the therapy process. But I also contend that the equipment is central to the imaging process. That's the instrumentation that we use to produce an image or to treat patients with radiation. And you can see then that the instrumentation, the science, etc., is important as well. So if we look down the medical imaging timeline, I'm going to tell you this little story here. And we start out with, our friend Dr. Röntgen. And then we move on to some other technologies. We come down to CT, digital, and then, of course, MRI, and then, of course, the future. Well, I'm no expert researcher in the future, so I will cite Dr. Maidmont, who is the actual researcher, and when he gives this talk on the future of medical imaging, I'll tell you what he says. Now, if you look at this topic is important for all of us. And I know some of you love the sciences. Some of you, you have an opposing point of view. Well, I don't really give a hoot about the science or the physics we use. But, I use it and I do my thing. Some of you love it. But if you look carefully at the bottom there, it says 7 Nobel Prize winners from 1895 to 2003. Now, this is very significant because it tells us that there's a lot of thinking that actually went into the development of the technologies. And why are we doing this? For the benefit of the patient. Absolutely, for the benefit of the patient. 7 Nobel Prize, 3 of them for physics that is related to the imaging science, and then 4 of them for the imaging science as well, and we'll see that. So you know the story about Röntgen. I remember we had a high-energy physicist at the Ottawa General Hospital. She came from Ottawa U, and she taught us the physics of medical radiography. And I remember when she first told us this story, Röntgen discovered X-rays having worked with cathode rays, and he noticed, a glow way across the room, and that glow was coming from barium platinocyanide. So later on after the lecture, I was sort of walking around, barium platinocyanide. Barium platinocyanide. I thought I sounded so intelligent with this word. It was the first time I've ever encountered barium platinocyanide. Anyway, so Röntgen won the Nobel Prize in Physics for this discovery, and hence applied the application of this physics was in imaging, radiography, and we know that that's the hand of his wife. And we got it. Now, here's a very important slide. And this is taken from Perry Sprouls, for those of you who know Perry. Got it off the web. And you can see that on the left, there's the patient. And this patient's got a tumor. The patient's ill, sick. And the goal of imaging now is to produce an image that has a one-to-one correspondence, so that the image will actually show you definitely what's going on in the patient. So subsequently, we can manage the health care of the patient. And if you look there are 2 other people. So there's the patient is central to our imaging and therapy activities. But then we have this equipment. And the goal of the equipment is to transfer what's in that patient onto an image so that the observer, who is generally a radiologist, although I know there are some technologists who actually perform the task of lesion identification. And so here we have the interpreter looking at that image. If the machine fails to produce that image, well, we cannot make a diagnosis and therefore manage the health care of the patient. Now, there's another person standing there, and that's the operator. That's you and I. And we are interacting with the machine. And you can see we need to understand the machine and how it works. And that's why we take all these other courses apart from just the patient care course. And that is very important, as you have heard in the keynote address. And here I want to stress that we need also to understand the science of the imaging. Why? Because we become wise users. And a wise user, I think a patient really appreciates. That's why that kid was smiling earlier. She had a wise tech. Now, I've added detective quantum efficiency. These terms are getting so sophisticated that I sound so impressive walking around. Oh, DQE, DQE. You know, and I'm impressing my friends and my brothers and sisters. Now, here is the same system. And notice at the top, it's the first lecture I'm giving without, notice I didn't give you a breakdown of topics for the lecture. And that's because I wanted you to anticipate the next topic that's coming. And I'm sure some of you will do that as I go through. Now, so read the topic at the top of the slide, the function of the imaging system still. You can see that to get from the patient to the image, there's a lot of sciences involved. And I'm going to take license to say that the science is the physics, there's mathematics as a science, there is computer sciences, and of course there's engineering, and engineering is a science, engineering sciences. So, and then here are the two people that are important in the treatment or management of this patient, and there must be some communication between the two. And in order to do that and have effective communication, we both need, that is the operator and the observer, need to understand the system and not leave everything to a physicist. I believe we can help in this regard. So here's an image hot off the press, Philips Medical Systems, hot off the press. So if I show this image to a radiologist, well, he may chase me out of the office. Say, what the heck is this image? All I could see is streaks. And that is an image, and Philips have developed more recently a metal artifact reduction, and iDose, which is dose control. And look at what happens when I apply the sciences to that image. I have another image free of artifacts and try to optimize the dose as well. I know Rob Davison loved this slide. This is crazy. I mean, you know this stuff, right? Except it's not at the forefront of your thought. We don't worry about Fourier transform. You say, oh, there's an FT thing going on there. There's a signal-to-noise ratio. There's a DQE. Oh, there's attenuation. There's Lambert-Beer's law. There's an integral equation there, and so on and so forth. There's DLP, the dose length product, and CT. So, this is fun for some people. They love that stuff, But I'm going to flip that. I'm not going to tell you about any of those. Here is the sciences. And why is the science important? Well, the outcome is actually dose image quality optimization. And this is a term that has emerged recently. The optimization is one of the principles of radiation protection, the ICRP principles of justification, optimization, and dose limitation. So when you look at optimization, what does it say? Well, it says that I should, as a radiation worker, operate under the philosophy of as low as is reasonably achievable. I'm a radiation worker. I have to work within the ALARA philosophy. And why am I doing that? Well, I'm doing that for the benefit of the patient. And I'm optimizing the dose because I know of the fact that it is known beyond a shadow of a doubt that radiation can cause harm, damage, biodamage, and you have taken deterministic effects, which have a threshold dose. We try not to give the patient the threshold dose, otherwise the effect shows up. And then we have the stochastic effects, which have no threshold dose. And that simply means that no dose of radiation is absolutely safe. Any dose, no matter how small, has the potential to cause harm. And we have to give this patient a purpose-filled dose. And therefore, we have to work within the ALARA philosophy. So who is benefiting from all this science is the patient. So I will look at radiography as an imaging system. There's nuclear medicine, and of course the CAT scanner and MR scanner is within the domain of radiation therapy as well. And the two goals of imaging and therapy are different. However, we do produce images in therapy. Now, if you look at this radiographic system, there is a technologist standing there, there's a patient on the table, and we have all this equipment around us. And because I'm a wise user, the patient benefits. The patient gets, in fact, the technologist gets the first image correctly. The first time I get it right, and the patient benefits. But if you look at all the technology that surrounds that, I have, for example, you remember MAKV in time, MAS and KV and so on and so forth. And there's a generator. There's been several changes in that generator. And most of you know now we have high-frequency generators. That was actually invented to save the patient dose. Because now I can give very little dose, very short times, and so on and so forth. And as you go through there, you hit the X-ray tube. Well, there's been significant developments in the science and technology of the X-ray tube. And all because we want to deliver less dose to the patient and keep imaging and taking pictures. Then we produce a beam, and the beam gets to the patient, and there's the dose picture. We have image receptors. The image receptor itself has changed. We've gone from film screen to digital detectors, and there's some consequences of exposure and so on with digital. So let's look at the first, the one that I want to show you. Look at this quickly. This is a Siemens diagram on the right, or picture. And as you see, there's a stationary anode tube. Remember those? Limited output. We couldn't do a lot with it. Long exposure times. We needed short exposure times, so they invented the rotating anode tube. Shorter exposure times, good output. We can save the patient some dose. And then we pushed the limits of that tube in the middle, and we developed this one, full metal jacket. Full metal envelope. And that was a movie, Full Metal Jacket, by the way. This is full metal envelope. You remember the glass envelope? There was a glass metal envelope. This is a full metal envelope. And look at the part that's big. That's a big, thick, rotating anode, 200 diameter disc. And that was all done to get the output to match the requirements of the imaging and to save the patient dose. Now, here's a tube that was invented for the 64-slice CT scanner. And as you image these patients with the CT scanner, the loading requirements on the tube becomes a problem, especially if we're going to image, as the patient's moving through in a full breath hold. So we need power. And when I say power, I mean MAKV time. So Siemens invented this tube dedicated to their CT scanner, the 64-slice. And look at the size of this tube. And what this tube is based on is its rotating envelope technology. The whole envelope rotates, unlike the other tubes where only the disc rotates. So I'm just going to show you this animation quickly. Look at what happens here. I hope I can do this. Oops. No, what's happening? Oh, I can't point. Sorry about that. I cannot point, put my mouse on the thing and get it to go. Sorry about that. But anyway, it just shows you how the tube works. And more importantly, there's oil that surrounds that blue piece. That's blue, right? It's not pink. Okay, it's blue. And what happens, the oil heats up, of course, and it's sent out of the housing into some cooling, and then it pumps the cool oil back in. So you can energize this tube over and over and over. You don't have to wait for tube to cool, as some of you well know. Enter the computer. So here is the computer now, and yeah, this turns me on. Computers, man, this is good. I'm going to get involved with computers now. And I remember submitting a paper to the CAMRT journal back in time, and it was called Computer Applications in Radiology. And the computer applications that dominated at that time was non-imaging applications such as radiology information systems and so on. But there was one application called automated image analysis. Now this is fascinating back in time. Automated image analysis. Well, what does that mean? I'll take a picture and give it to the computer to read. That's fascinating. And the computer will make a diagnosis. And so they did some studies on the computer performance based on the radiologist performance. And where do you think the performance was better? The computer side. In fact, the computer made the performance was about 98% accuracy compared to the radiologist's 75% accuracy. But the author, I'm going to quote what the author of that paper said. He said, most radiologists are afraid to admit that their diagnostic impressions are so fragile. Anyway, there's no reason why it shouldn't, because there was 100 experts who developed that system to analyze the image. So you could see all the computer science, artificial intelligence, expert systems technology in that. But look at this, a bunch of zeros and ones circling the globe. I love that. It's just 0 and a 1. So we go back to these number systems, and you can see it evolved from a 5-digit. 5 digits, that's one way of counting. 10 digits, that's the decimal number system. 0 to 9, that's the base 10. And then Leibniz, who's a mathematician, comes along and he says, well, you know what, we can just have another number system called a binary number system, and it's a 0, closed fist 0, and then an open, extended fingers 1. What can I do with that? Well, computers operate with the binary number system. So the binary number system was one of the topics. Oh, I love the binary number system. This was invented for me because it's only a base 2. So I tried to write my name in binary. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bytes. And I thought to myself, I'll never remember this sequence of bits. So now we get into the applications. And this is computer radiography. There's a lot of talks given in this session, this conference on CR, DR, etc. And the reason I brought this along was to show you that if you look at step 3 and 4, step 3 involves pre-processing. So I've acquired the image, exposed the patient, it's on the detector, and then I process. But now I have image pre-processing and image post-processing. So look at the benefits of the image pre-processing. If I didn't have the image pre-processing, if I presented that middle image to a radiologist, that radiologist will be confused about which are tiny nodules and so on and so forth. These are artifacts. So what the pre-processing does, it wipes it all out. And in CT, we have pre-processing, etc. And look at the image there now. Here is the flat panel digital. And what fascinates me here is the fact that this detector now contains these pixel elements. And the image falls on each of the pixel elements. And we have some electronics. If you think of a pixel, a square pixel, the pixel has in a switch. It has in storage capacitors. And then the other piece, the radiation falls on. So we come up with something called the fill factor. The fill factor, oh, that was pretty good. That is the area of the pixel that the radiation is falling on, the sensing area. And that's a picture, and the vertical bar you see down the left side is a hair, and that's what the size of these. So you have to engineer the actual pixel on this plate, the pixel size and the elements. But then the other thing that really turned my crank was, oh, here's something called the limiting spatial resolution. The limiting spatial resolution. I sound like a high-energy physicist. So what does it mean? Well, it simply means this is the smallest size that they can make this pixel. Engineer the pixel size. And that is the resolution. So I see from that diagram, right now the resolution is about 5 line pairs per millimeter. And to engineer, maybe in the future we'll see smaller pixel sizes. Now here's another one that we revived. We used to use this in film screen, but not commonplace use. In fact, we used the quantum detection efficiency. Right? That's another story compared to the detective quantum efficiency. I guess a whole committee sat down and decided to change that name. Quantum detection efficiency, detective quantum efficiency. So it's hard work to do that. Now, here's the detector. This is an important concept for us. Why do we need to understand it? Because there is no competency around this when we practice. But we need to understand it because it has everything to do with dose to this patient and image quality, right? So now the input beam falls on the detector. The detector must now utilize that radiation coming from the patient and translate that into an image. So we've got this thing called the DQE. Look at that. It's the ratio, signal to noise square out, signal to noise square in. And you know all these concepts. I'm just refreshing your memory and stressing why they're important. So if you look at the signal to noise squared in, that's the beam going in, it's actually talking about the photon fluence, the number of X-rays falling on that. And you know very well that if you don't have enough photons, you've got noise. If you have too many photons, you've got dose. So as a technologist, you have to sort of balance. And how do you balance that? Because I've got some smarts up here, right? And I've learned all that stuff. 2 years I've spent learning it. And look at the signal to noise out. What does that take into consideration? Well, it takes into consideration this thing called the MTF. Well, I don't care about the MTF myself, but it talks about the spatial resolution, the detail. And then NPS, noise power spectrum. What do I care about noise power spectrum? I know the physics guys, they love all these things. But for me as a tech, I say, well, noise power spectrum is just a noise it's talking about that's coming out of the detector. So now, look, I have detail over the noise, and the equation tells you about the signal to noise out. And then we are now beginning to see this diagram in our adventures in digital. And even when we buy the equipment as managers, administrators, you look at this and you say, well, there's DQE on the left, and there's the spatial frequencies at the bottom. That line at the bottom, the horizontal axis, is telling you about sharpness and the detail and the contrast as you get towards the zero line. And you can see that it doesn't go up to 1. If a detector has a DQE of 1, that is a perfect system, a perfect detector. But no detector is perfect. There is no perfect system. Except my wife told me my DQE was 1. I'm like, yeah. Now look at this. This is taken from Konica Minolta. And thank you very much, Konica. And you see the image on the top right, the top left. That's the input image. But look at the output image on the bottom right. I want to improve that image to present it to the observer to make a diagnosis. That image looks okay to me, but someone said, no, that's not a good image. Let's do some processing and get that image on the right. And so to get from that image to that image on the right, look at the amount of processing. And you say, well, there's no competencies around that. What do I care? Well, you should care because it makes life interesting. And the patient benefits because you really understand how the system works. So now I'm going to do some processing. I got turned on by processing, image post-processing, I told you. So I said, well, what is image processing? So I went to these experts, and they say, well, image processing is the manipulation of images by computer. Well, that's very simple. So then I went on further, and my buddy, who is a biomedical engineer at BCIT, he says, well, it's not just that simple. This is what it involves. So look at all the mathematics that surround image processing. So I said to him, I'm not really interested in that. Just tell me what's happening. So he gave me a good lesson. I took a whole course from a friend of mine, Bruno Yagi, engineer at BCIT. And of course, there are two advantages of digital image processing. One is called the improvement of pictorial information for human interpretation. So why am I doing this? I'm doing this for the benefit of the patient. Because if the radiologist can make a diagnosis from the right image, the image on the right, the patient benefits. And then we can manage the medical condition of the patient. Improvement of pictorial information. The second one, which I'll not show you, is machine interpretation of images and so on. Oh man, that's my GQ picture. I think I still look like that, except, I have some premature graying, which is as a result of exposure to X-rays. I took the mustache off. Now, look at the title of the slide, Image Domains. So I'm going from a spatial location image on the left to a spatial location, to a frequency image in the middle. And then I end up with an image on the right that looks the same as the one on the left. So why am I going to do this? It doesn't make any sense, but there's a lot of advantages for doing this. So you see, I'm going to change that spatial location image to what is called a frequency domain image. And look how different it looks. You show a radiologist that, and he says, what is this? But you show a physicist that, and the guy loves it, or the gal loves this image. And therefore, I'm going to use a Fourier transform to do that, to get to the spatial image, frequency image, and then I will have to change it back and use an inverse Fourier transform. So here is a spatial location image, and I'm operating on the pixels on that image. Every pixel, I can change the picture from input to output by operating on the pixels. But here's an image on the left, the spatial frequency image. And what do I do with that? Well, I have a program that says I can use the frequencies to change the picture, and so on. I can sharpen it, I can blur it, I can do other things with it. So here is a picture of my wife. This is an example. This is a picture of my wife in the frequency domain. I mean, look at all those frequencies. High frequencies, low frequencies. The contrast information is in the middle of that frequency domain image. The spatial, the sharpness is on the outside. And that is the frequency domain image of my wife. I have a picture of that in my wallet. But I actually prefer the picture in the spatial domain. This is my wife, and she is the cutest chaplain I know. And also, we have been married 41 years, and I still am walking upright. Thanks, babes. So now, image processing, I'm turned on by this topic. Sorry to use that expression, but that's the language of popular culture, isn't it? I love this topic, has intrigued me. And here, Baxes, who's written the book on image processing, here are all these image enhancement, image analysis, etc., image compression. So I go on here, image enhancement, right? I'm going to use the frequency domain, and I can use the frequencies and sharpen up that image. So I've used a filter, a high-pass filter to sharpen up the image. I could use a low-pass filter operating on these frequencies, and I get a blurred image. So image analysis, this is important. Look at what I can do with image analysis. I can actually extract information from the image. And then I could have a program do image segmentation, feature extraction, classification of objects, and that is done by this thing called the GPU. Well, we don't pay attention to the GPU. It simply means a graphical processing unit. And image analysis, I'll come back to the GPU in a bit to tell you what it actually does. Image analysis, well, you start out with your sectional image. That is an image that looks like, it's a 2D image. And then I go through a whole set of operations, and I get the 3D image at the bottom. And you can see this is image synthesis. I start out with one type of image, and I perform image synthesis, and I end up with another type of image. Why? For the benefit of the patient. So while the sectional image, the 2D image, might provide some information, the 3D image will provide some more information. Image compression, this is a nice topic. And what does that mean? Well, I have all this big image, and I want to send it to storage, or and then the radiologist wants to access it from storage. So the size of the image is important. And what we can do with that is compress it. So we have, look at, this is going to work, I think, yeah. So here's my image, and then I've shrunk it, I've compressed it a bit, and then I send it down the line. Notice how slowly it's going, and bang, it's in storage. Now remember, storage costs money. A radiologist is interested in the time that it takes to get from that to him or her. An administrator is interested in the cost of that space. So here is another one, and I've compressed again, and you see how fast that went down the line, and it's stored, and look at the sizes of the storage. So I've got a very small storage space, very cheap. Administrators are happy, radiologists are happy, and so on. So we have two types of compression, lossless and lossy. So on the top one, I will bring the image back up and no information is lost. The second one at the bottom, I bring the image up and I've got some problems. I've lost some information. And the bottom one, I can compress with higher compression ratios. While the top one, lossy, the compression ratio might go up to 5:1, the bottom one can go up to 100:1. So you can see it'll take a very small storage space, and it'll get down the line faster. The transmission speed is fast. And so the question is, if I'm going to lose information and I present that to a radiologist, what happens? Can he or she make a diagnosis from the image that's been compressed? And this became a very topical subject matter for research. And here we have higher compression ratios for the irreversible compression technology. And so Here I show you a visual effect of the compression. That's our boy Dave. He's handsome, eh? Jeez. And you can see he was compressed with 40:1 JPEG, and now he's compressed with JPEG 2000:1. And you can see if you compare those two JPEGs, 40:1 to 2000? No, 40:1 JPEG 2000, and then that's 40:1 JPEG. And so radiology now is using JPEG 2000 as well as DICOM compression. I just wanted to show you that. So the question is now, can radiologists make a diagnosis from the irreversible compressed image? And so what happened was I did a study for Canada Health Info Way, and I surveyed radiologists, expert radiologists in Canada and the US, and the Canadian radiologist sort of feared litigation, right, from the compressed image. And now the CAR in 2006, it's back in time, they have accepted the principle of irreversible compression for use in primary diagnosis and clinical review using those compression algorithms, specific ratios for the specific image type. So not all image type has the same compression ratio. So with that in mind, I got so involved with digital image processing. I talked to my buddy Rob Davidson, Dr. Rob Davidson, and we're writing a book on digital image processing for technologists, hopefully soon to be published. Rob is the senior author. Now here comes CAT scanning. Oh, CAT scanning. I'm sure some of you have seen this slide. I was fascinated. This is a GE slide, by the way, CAT scanning. And the story goes, the Ringling Brothers Circus was in town, and this big tiger is sort of walking and falling over to one side. And what do you call a guy who manages a tiger? A zookeeper, a zoo guy? Anyway, the zoo guy phoned up his radiologist friend who had a CT scanner and said, can you scan my tiger? Yeah, bring the tiger in. And of course, the tiger had a tumor of the brain, and the recommendation was that the tiger retires in a resort in Florida. This tiger is probably dead by now, and we know this as CT scanning. You know this guy? Yeah, who's it, Paul McCartney? Well, Paul McCartney and his wife Linda died of breast cancer, and actually Paul McCartney gave a lot of money to EMI to help build a CT scanner. And if you see the evolution of the scanner, fantastic evolution. And why all this evolution? This is a lot of science, engineering, computer science, all for the benefit of the patient. And they've employed lots of people here as well. So you can see, here's the old head scanner, the EMI scanner, and we've gone right up now to 3D, fully 3D, you know, the Toshiba 320, and then we have the Siemens dual scanner, and look at the evolution there. And why the evolution? The evolution is actually done for the benefit of the patient. So if you look at that first image, the head image, this is a terrible image. Now we have fully 3D images. How does CT work? Well, you don't have to take any notes, but look at this carefully. I'm just going to read this for you. Here's a math problem. CT is all math. The process of producing an image in a two-dimensional distribution, usually of some physical property, from estimates of its line integrals along a finite number of lines of known locations. Well, I'm a tech. I don't really care about this stuff, you know, but you should understand a little bit of what's happening here. So here's the object. My goal is to calculate mu and to tell me what mu is all about. It's an attenuation coefficient. As the beam passes through the object, it's reduced in intensity, blah, blah, blah. And that attenuation is governed by Lambert-Beer's law. So you know what's going in, you know what's coming out. You know E. And by the way, E is not Euclid's constant. It's Euler's constant. I did ask a student to actually tell me each of those parameters, and one student wrote E was Euclid's constant. So wow, that's great. And then you find mu. You see, you have to solve for mu. So you do your thing, but it's, you know, you're going through a whole range of pixels, mu1 to mu1024, and that's only one line. So it says the physical property, of course, is mu, right? And I have to calculate mu knowing the line integral. So all that means is I'm summating all the pixels along the line. So I have mu1 plus mu2 plus mu3 plus mu1024. And then I am going to take some measurements from different locations. And the tube is just going around the patient. So I know exactly, and I use all that information to produce an image on the very bottom right. So now here comes image reconstruction mathematics. And this is fascinating. So here's an image. There's the object in there, those two white dots in the object. And I've taken two views. And I'm going to try and produce that data set to an image. And that's the image. That's what that image looks like. And that's no image reconstruction. So some smart person comes along and say, hey, I can get a good image there for you with image reconstruction. And there are the two objects that I want to see with image reconstruction math. But yet we take it all for granted. So here is a reconstruction algorithm. It's called back projection. So on the left, I take an image of that object, and I get a profile from the detector. It's electronic. I get a profile. And on the right, I'm going to reconstruct using data from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 profiles. And I reconstruct that block there that I'm trying to image, and you can see it looks like a star. So actually, the picture looks like a star, and this is no good. This is called a classical star blur, and it actually was a technique, mathematics solved by two guys, Cool and Edwards, who were in nuclear medicine. So that research was shelved until Hungsfield came along, and he developed a filter to actually filter that out. And now you see 4 back projections. It's called filtered back projection, and I get a nice image. It gets rid of the blur. And then today we have some more fancy and sophisticated algorithms, and these are just 2 that are used on the multi-slice CT scanner. So image reconstruction, lots of thinking, lots of thought going into this. I'm fascinated by thinking. And one of my favorite shows on TV is called Extreme Engineering. Have you seen that? Has anyone seen that show? Extreme Engineering. This is how they put up massive structures. So let's take a whole big bridge. The engineer says, this is it on paper, and it works. And now they're going to build this bridge. So you construct the bridge, and as you're doing this in reality, you end up with all kinds of problems. So what do? Well, we know a guy who's an expert to solve this problem. So they bring a guy in or a gal, and they say, well, let's solve the problem, and they do that. So this is what the image reconstruction bit is doing for us. Now, who did this? Well, this is significant work because the Nobel Committee recognized this as significant work. And you can see there the whole list. That's Hungsfield when he was younger. That's in front of the Mark I scanner. But if you notice the piece in bright that I've made a sine wave there, oops, sorry, let me go back. So here you go, Nobel Prize for the CT scanner. And what he did is he sharpened up the image, and he made a useful scanner, a clinically useful scanner, because the previous research was shelved, gathering dust. And Hungsfield comes along and says, I can do this. And then there's I forgot this slide. But look at it carefully. I actually communicated with Hungsfield. And so he says, Euclid. Notice we are on a first-name basis. Euclid. All I have at hand is the Nobel lecture, Godfrey Hungsfield. Well, that's fantastic. So I have the autograph of Dr. Hungsfield, Nobel Prize winner. And while some of you are busy trying to collect Michael Bublé's autograph or Bryan Adams, I have the autographs of 2 other Nobel Prize winners who actually came to BCIT. And this is Dr. Agri on the left. And what he did, he discovered aquaporins. And aquaporins are molecules that transfer water in and out of cells. So he got the Nobel Prize for that. He signed my thing there. It says, best wishes, Euclid, Agri. And then Weinman, he's a physicist, he's a physicist who worked on a new state of matter. It's called the Bose-Einstein condensate. And for that, he won the Nobel Prize. So he wrote on my, where is that? Oh, yeah, you could see it says Euclid, Weinstein. So I got the autograph there. Now, here's Nobel Prize in CT again. And of course, what Cormac did, that CT scanner, by the way, that he has is worth $100. And so he shared a Nobel Prize with Hounsfield in 1979. So significant work, and he worked on the mathematics of CT. So a lot of thought that goes into all this technology for the benefit of the patient. So at this point in time, I thought I'll give your brain a rest from all these things I'm showing you. Here's a CT scanner for trees. And so you scan the tree, and you're looking for joint knots and bad wood and good wood, and you optimize your production of wood. And here's one for scanning the pig to check out the integrity of the bacon, perhaps. I don't know. And then here's one. This is kind of interesting. This radiologist writes the story that his son had his bicycle lock. It was locked, and he couldn't find the combination. And the kid needed this lock. You know, cute little kid, he needs his bicycle lock. So the father took it into the scanner, scanned it through, and look at that. You got the combination now. You can see where the combination is 1879. Okay? And the story goes that the child was very happy because his dad solved the problem for him. CT of mummies, you know, and then you see you have some image processing here, surface rendering as well as volume rendering, and then as you know, your bags have probably been scanned by a CT scanner at the airport. I remember coming home from Florida one time. I went to see my mom, and my mom usually, you know, put stuff in the bag for me, not telling me. And so she put, it was split pea flour, and she puts it right on this nice flat bag of split pea flour. At the Orlando airport, they were scanning my bag through. They called me up, Mr. Seeram, come to the desk, please. And I said, what the heck's that all about? Where are you going? Oh, I'm going back to British Columbia, Canada. Okay, blah, 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 and that was it. And when I got home, I found a note saying we had to scan your bag. So I could see what they were thinking. The split pea flour did not come up as a contraband on their list. Multi-slice, and here the evolution of the technology for the benefit of the patient. And so if you look on the top image, this is the patient is stationary, and the patient goes, the beam goes around the patient. The one on the right shows you that the slice, the data is coming from that one slice. But if I start moving the patient through the gantry, the data is going to come from two different slices, and now the algorithm is confused. The algorithm recognizes consistent data on the top diagram, but the algorithm is, doesn't know what to do with data coming from two different parts of the body. So what they invented was interpolation algorithms. So now if you're scanning with the patient moving through, the section is like this. So what the algorithm says is you have to straighten up the beam. So you have a sectional slice, and this is a transverse axial slice perpendicular to the long axis. The beam now goes right through, and they invented these interpolation algorithms for that, 360 and then 180. 180 was a much sharper algorithm. So here's without interpolation, that's what you would get. And a radiologist would not be able to help the patient there. So that's what the image would look like, terrible image. With interpolation, I've gotten rid of that, and my image is good. So all this work for the benefit of the patient. Another term that got to me was pitch, and a lot of you know the pitch. And the pitch means that the pitch, by definition, is the distance the table travels. But then we invent something called the pitch ratio, and it means that it's the distance the table moves compared to the slice width, and you get a pitch ratio. But in radiology, we've come to say pitch ratio. That takes too much muscle, so I say pitch ratio, too much muscle, so I say pitch, you see. But then there was some confusion with multi-slice pitch, and the IEC, International Electrotechnical Commission, did the work and said this is what pitch is, the distance the table traveled to the collimation width. And you can see then on the image on the right, as my pitch ratio decreases, the picture gets sharper. As my pitch ratio increases, it's blurred on the left image. As I use a higher pitch ratio, the dose decreases. As I use a lower pitch ratio, the image quality is good, but at the expense of dose. Here are all these dosimetry things here in CT. And dose, we know radiography on that one side, and this side, the scheme is different because the beam rotates around the patient. So what happens, we had to develop new metrics for expressing dose in CT, and the Center for Disease and Radiological Health in the US in 1981 came up with these two definitions, CTDI, MSAD. I'm not going to go into all of that, but you can see, look at the integral, that little F thing, that's an integral from infinity to minus infinity to plus infinity, d of z, dz. What does that mean? Well, that's the, I just stick a dosimeter in there, and that will give me that equation. And if I divide that by the slice width, I get the CTDI. So then we had variations of the CTDI, and now the dose in CT is getting up there. People have concerns, cancer induction, and so on and so forth, as you know the story. So there were efforts made to control this dose and manage the dose, and it started out with the manufacturers who decided to invent automatic exposure control. So if you look at that patient varies in thickness from left to right. And if you didn't have automatic dose control, you would use one MAS along the line. So why not make it such that as the thickness increases, the MA increases, that the thickness decreases the MA. And as you know, MAS is, the dose is proportional to the MAS. So if you increase the MAS, you increase the dose. MS applications, we have a 3D image there. So here's a 2D image. We put all of that into what is called 3D space, and then we write programs to go into 3D space and give us the output image on the right. And believe me, these output images on the right have contributed a lot to the diagnosis of the image for the benefit of the patient. And here's a graphic processing unit again that comes in. And here's a whole review article on the graphic processing unit. But what we're concerned with is the advantages of having the GPU. This is computer science, and it's all applied in imaging, image reconstruction, dose calculation, treatment planning, optimization, image processing, 3D, cardiac CT processing. And you can see that the 3D applications, we've generated new image types on the right. And that takes a lot of thinking and thought, a lot of computer science. And each of those images on the right actually will help the radiologist make a diagnosis. So if a radiologist sees the top image only, he may be limited, he or she may be limited, but can generate the third image type and say, well, this is it. So the patient benefits. And the last image there, I like this because now this is a virtual reality image, and now you can fly through the bowel, apparently. Has anyone flown through the bowel? Is that good fun, flying through the bowel? Hey, this is good. And look at the conceptual framework for building up the other image. So all that on the left, those numbers are stored as 3D space in the computer. Write the program, pull it out, and you can reconstruct any image using the numbers in there. So fascinating. And finally, here comes MRI. And MRI is fascinating technology. And one of the topics, it is based on nuclear magnetic resonance. So what does that nuclear simply means? Well, nuclei with an odd number of protons and neutrons lend themselves to MR imaging. Magnetic, well, the proton, by virtue of its charge and spin, has a net magnetic moment, mu, and that's what we're using in MR to image. In fact, that nuclear magnetism won the Nobel Prize in physics. And then finally, resonance. And I show you this picture. Resonance is a condition whereby every object has a natural frequency of vibration. This building, for example, has a natural frequency of vibration. And you've seen the one with the opera singer. There's a glass sitting on the table, and she pulls a very high note, and the glass shatters. Well, that's resonance phenomenon. With the Tacoma Bridge collapse, the engineers did not take into consideration the wind that was coming in. So the bridge has a natural frequency of vibration, a resonant frequency, and the wind comes in and matches the resonant frequency of the bridge. And the bridge absorbs the energy, and bang, it collapses. And that's the same principle we use in MRI. So here, I put a proton in a magnetic field, BO, and the proton starts to precess. It's precessing, it's wobbling at a specific frequency called a Larmor frequency. We generate a Larmor equation, and this is a fundamental equation to MRI. And here in MR, we have several image types. While CT and radiography were imaging electron densities, And that's the characteristic of tissue that we create an image with. Here in MR, we have several image types, and we're using several parameters, T1, T2, flow, and so on. And on the right, you see we can do some functional stuff as well. Now here's it. I put the patient to the scanner, and I collect frequencies, and I put the frequencies in something called K-space, and that's what K-space would look like. But I can't show a radiologist that, so I have to do an inverse Fourier transform. And here's a paper written for radiologists. You understand the Fourier transform. Here's Fourier, Joseph Fourier, and he invented this stuff. And what he says there is at the top, you see ABC? Those are all kinds of frequencies. And then if you add them up, you can transform that time domain signal on the left to a frequency domain. And then you use the frequency domain to process, and that's fantastic. So here is the frequency domain image, and then I do an inverse Fourier, I got this image. So you can see all the math that's involved in MR. Here's the Vancouver Symphony, and the reason I brought this along is what is the, am I running over time? Yes. So what I will do is flip through and just mention that we've got some more Nobel Prize winners. And the two on the right, that's for imaging in MR, and the two on the left, physics, which has applications to MR, and those are the chaps. And then the future of imaging, I went to the actual researcher, Maidmont, who actually presented this future at a big conference, and this was published in Radiation Dosimetry, Radiation Protection Dosimetry. And he says that there are three trends. One, tomographic imaging, functional, molecular, image-based biomarkers. And so we now see breast tomosynthesis. This is radiographic tomosynthesis. I'm using a flat panel, and I get some images. And this is radiographic tomosynthesis, breast tomosynthesis, and you can see the benefits. This is tomosynthesis with radiography and CT. And of course, the one on the left is cheaper than the CT, and is showing you the same thing. And then functional molecular imaging using nanoparticles. There's new technology coming. And here's an article written for radiologists, diagnostic and interventional. So this means that we as technologists will have to get prepared for this. And finally, that's molecular imaging. And I'll just show you quickly what the definition is. Visualization, characterization, measurement of biological processes at the molecular and cellular levels in humans and living systems. So we've got all that technology coming, and then image-based biomarkers, a metric that you can extract quantitative features and come up with ways to manage the severity and degree of change, relative status of degree, disease, and so on and so forth. So this image-based biomarkers. And finally, you were wondering where the accent was coming from. I am from British Guyana right there. It used to be British Guyana. You see the little blue there. It's Guyana up there next to Suriname and Venezuela and Brazil. Now I live in Vancouver, and I'm a proud Canadian. That's Vancouver, and thank you very much. I'm sorry to have gone over time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Euclid. It's one of the really great pleasures of the role of being the CAMRT president to give this award every year, and I couldn't think of a better recipient. So Euclid, you inspire your students every single day at BCIT, and I know you've inspired this international audience today with your eloquent and informative lecture. It's my great pleasure to award the Welch Memorial Trophy to you, and I'd like the audience once again to thank Euclid Seeram.
Here you go. Thanks very much.
Just a couple quick housekeeping reminders that the CAMRT Foundation raffle is at 6 tonight, just outside the Grand Ballroom. Check out those fabulous opportunities to win a great prize. And if you're not attending the Congress Gala this evening, you may want to network during the cocktail hour and support the CAMRT Foundation. Winners will be announced at the gala, also posted at the registration desk. Check and see if you're the lucky winner. Tickets are available for $15 to attend the dance after the World Congress Gala Dinner, which starts at 9 p.m. for the dance. Tickets are $15. You can get those from the registration desk. Presidents and representatives of the Provincial Association are asked to meet for photos on the mezzanine level at 6 p.m. tonight. And if you have a poster on display, you must take it down today by 4. Tomorrow, the morning break will be served on the lower concourse, not outside the session rooms as written in your program. And finally, after the Congress, many of these sessions will be available online. Just watch for them later this summer. Enjoy the rest of your day.